Hi, it's Steve from PartSelect. Today we're going to show you how to change the drum support roller shaft on your dryer, and it's a really easy job. All we're going to need is a putty knife, a Phillips screwdriver, a 5/16 nut driver, a small flat blade screwdriver, a pair of slip joint pliers, and either a 9/16 wrench or a socket and ratchet. Let me show you how we do it. Now before we begin this repair, the first thing we'll need to do is pull the dryer forward enough so that we can disconnect the vent and gain some access to the back of the dryer. And since we'll be working around some electrical circuits, we should disconnect the plug from the wall. If your dryer is a hardwired dryer, you'll need to locate the fuse panel and disconnect the power at that point. Now next we're going to raise the top on it, so we'll need to remove two screws that are in the lint filter area. So remove the two Phillips screws, set those aside, and with a putty knife we'll come in about 2 inches from the edge, just pull forward on the top, lift it up. There's a little plastic catch that holds the top down, and we just need to depress that while pulling forward on it. We can raise the top, and we'll either need to have somebody support that or lean it up against the wall. We'll next take a 5/16 nut driver. We'll remove two screws that secure the front panel to the cabinet. Next we'll need to disconnect the wire harness to the door switch. There's little locking tabs on either side of that connector. You may need a small flat blade to loosen those up and separate them. Now at this point you can tilt the front panel forward. The drum will drop down a little bit. So just support that drum and we'll lift up on the panel, because there are a couple of clips at the bottom that fit into these square holes. We can set the front panel aside. Now next we'll need to remove the belt and the drum. Now to remove the belt, we'll reach in on the right hand side, pull the belt tensioner to the right, and at the same time we'll roll that belt off of the motor pulley. Now we can lift up on the rear of the drum, lift it off the rollers and then pull it right out, set it aside. Now with the drum and belt out of the way, we can now access that left rear roller and shaft. There's a support bracket on the front that we need to remove first. There's a 5/16 screw into the base. So we'll remove that screw. And the bracket, we can just wiggle that back and forth, and that'll pop that little metal spring clip off the front of the shaft. We'll save those two pieces. Now chances are, if you're replacing this drum support shaft, you're also replacing the roller at the same time. So you could just remove the 9/16 nut that is in behind the rear bulkhead and discard that shaft and wheel together. If you're just replacing the shaft, you'll need to remove these two triangular plastic clips that hold the roller to the shaft. And we'll do that once we remove the assembly. So with either a ratchet or the wrench, we can reach in through this opening, and the nut will be right at the back side of that shaft. Now that metal may be a little sharp there, so I suggest using some protective gloves. And reach in, and we'll just loosen that nut. You may need to support the shaft at the same time until it turns freely. And we can just hold that nut at the back, turn the shaft, and pull it out from the front. Now there's a large flat washer that goes in the front of that bulkhead, and a 9/16 nut, and a flat washer on the back side. At this point we can discard that whole assembly if you're replacing the wheel at the same time. If you're just replacing that shaft, we'll pop these two triangular clips off of there. Now to remove those clips, just take a small flat blade, and one end, Just lift it up enough to get it out of the groove and hold it up. And do the same thing on another point. Try not to damage them if you have to reuse them. Just rotate that around till you get the clip completely out of that groove. And then you can just lift it off. If the shaft is worn badly, you will need to replace that roller at the same time because it will have been damaged as well. And we'll slide the back one off of the opposite end of the shaft. You can discard that old support shaft. Before we install a new one, we'll slide that little triangular clip, one from one end. Just carefully pry that up onto the shaft. Try not to stretch it any more than need be. Slide it up until it locks into the groove. And we can put our support roller on. And some rollers will have a front and back marked on them, so pay attention to that. Slide the roller onto the shaft. Take our second clip. Snap it onto the front groove. Now we're ready to install the roller and assembly right onto the back bulkhead. So slide a washer on first. We'll set it into the hole and we'll put a washer over the back side of it and then the nut. And just holding the nut up against that shaft, we can turn the shaft from the front enough to start it on there, making sure that it's not cross-threaded. Now we can use our ratchet or a wrench and tighten that nut securely because we need to make sure that there is no play in that shaft at all. Now if you found it difficult to access that nut on the back of that shaft, you can remove the rear panel. It's a series of 1/4-inch screws that will allow you to do that, and then you'll have access to it. But I find it's pretty easy to get through from the front here. Now while tightening that nut, you may want to take a pair of slip joint pliers and just grasp the back of that shaft behind the roller. That'll keep that from turning. We're sure that it's nice and snug on there, and the roller turns freely. We can now put the support bracket back on. Slide that over the end of the shaft. We'll take that spring nut, we'll just slide it on top of it, push it on firmly, then we'll replace that 5/16 screw, secures it to the base. And we'll take that little speed clip, slide that over the end of the shaft, press it firmly up against the bracket. Now we're ready to put the drum back in. I'll show you how this belt should be orientated. Just take a loop through, wrap it around the motor pulley, and it will end up going around the drum like that. So when we've got the drum and the belt laying in there, we're just going to pull that through here, hook it over the motor pulley, and it will be correctly installed. So we'll start with the drum. We'll just wrap the belt around it, the groove side of the belt against the drum. And we're going to lift that drum up into position and position the rollers in the groove at the back. We may have to support that with one hand just to keep it from flopping around. make sure that that idler and belt tensioner is seated properly into the base. We're going to pull that belt across the top, in through the opening, and we'll take a little of the tension off by lifting up on the drum, roll it around the motor pulley. Now we can just carefully turn that, make sure it lines itself up properly. Check to make sure that the rear felt is not folded over. And then we can put the front panel and bulkhead on. And we'll make sure that we line up those square openings with those clips on either side at the bottom. We'll lift up on the drum. Make sure both sides at the bottom are hooked in properly. Line the drum up over the felt on the front panel. You can just rotate that a couple turns to make sure that it slides up over the felt. And then we can reinstall the 5/16 screw. Next we'll need to reconnect the wire harness to the door switch. Make sure that the locking tabs engage on both sides. And we can lower the top and engage these two clips that will fit into little slots on the top panel. Then we'll replace the two screws in the lint filter housing. Now we're ready to reconnect the power, and our repair is complete. I told you it was an easy job. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your repair.